No, no, we're coming out and adjourning.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to know if I
Yeah.
was waiting.
No, no. The Tuesday, September 10th, 2013 meeting of the Fairfield Public Schools Board of Education. Present is John Convertito, Jessica Gerber, myself, Philip Dwyer, Pamela Iacona, Paul Fadavine, Tim Carey, and Sue Brand. We expect Jennifer Kennelly. I haven't heard from Perry. We're expecting Perry.
No, actually, he sent us an email later on this afternoon saying we
I
apologize.
was out of the office, okay. So we're just about here, so let me ask you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I took note that as the teachers and staff of the school system came into the room, that like all students, they filled up the back chairs first. So it's universal wherever we go. One of the fun things that we get to do at this meeting, as a way of giving public notice to the dedicated and loyal service that employees have given to this school system of 25 years or greater, is to be able to have you come to this Board of Education because, as you know, your superintendent you either were happy that you did not have to go to the convocation or that you missed it greatly because it was a way for you to be recognized in front of your peers. But this is being telecast, and so the whole town can tune in and watch us as we recognize you for your years of service. So I'll ask Dr. Title if he can take over. We're going to go up to the microphone, and as he calls names, we'll ask you to come up, etc.
All right, so Mrs. Leffert, come to the podium with myself, and we will get the program underway.
So, good evening. I'm happy to be honoring our celebrants tonight, 25 years. I want to bring you back to 1988. Ronald Reagan is president. Sonny Bono was elected mayor of Palm Springs. George H.W. Bush is elected president later that year. A gallon of gas, 91 cents. Movie tickets, $3.50. The Hubble Space Telescope is put into operation. And popular movies are Rain Man, Die Hard, and the popular Who Framed Roger Rabbit. In addition, the folks that I'm going to talk about today, most of them came on board in the Fairfield Public Schools, and we are thrilled that they joined us and that they are still here, and we're proud to honor them tonight. So let me start. This staff member began at Holland Hill as a paraprofessional, worked as a reading specialist, as a grade 3 teacher, moved on to Riverfield Elementary School, grades K, 3, and 5, taught kindergarten at Dwight Elementary School, and then since 2008 has been at Stratfield teaching grades K and 1. She's currently a grade 1 teacher. Please honor Kimberly Allen Grafsky. This next staff member began at Sherman as a custodian and continues in our maintenance department. I'm not sure if he's here tonight. William Banks? Here he is.
There he is.
How could I miss you? This next staff member began as a paraprofessional, and continues as a paraprofessional at Sherman Elementary School. She's not able to be here tonight, but please join me in celebrating Connie Baranier. This staff member began at Jennings as a paraprofessional, and in 2001 moved to Osborne Hill as a paraprofessional, and she remains there. This help me celebrate Colleen Collier, but she's not here this evening. She's not able to attend, but we'll celebrate her. All right, let's see if I can get this one right. This individual began at McKinley School as a paraprofessional, and she's been in a paraprofessional her whole career. She moved on to North Stratfield Elementary School, Tomlinson Middle School, Holland Hill Elementary School, Osborne Hill Elementary School, back to Holland Hill, and now is currently at Fairfield Woods Middle School, and she is loved in each of those positions, Diane Dionis. This next staff member was at Sherman School when he began and taught grades 3 and 4. In 1996, moved on to Fairfield Woods Middle School as a grade 6 teacher, a computer resource teacher, and for the last 8 years has been a grade 6 teacher. David is not able to be here, but please join me in celebrating David Doherty. This staff member began his career at Sherman Elementary School as an art educator, moved on to Fairfield High School, and since 1999 has been at Mill Hill School as an art teacher. Please join me in celebrating Eric Erf. This staff member began at Central Office as a custodian, moved to Riverfield School. In 1990, moved to Jennings School as a custodian, and has been at Fairfield Ludlow High School since 2003 as a custodian. Not sure if Ann Fellner is here. There you are. Great. This next staff member began at the district level as a custodial supervisor, moved to Fairfield High School as a head custodian, and is now at Fairfield Ward High School as a head custodian. Please join us in celebrating Mike Furness. This next staff member began at McKinley, taught grade 3, Stratfield Elementary School, taught grades 5, grade 1, grade 3, and has been the library media specialist at North Stratfield School since 1997. Please join me in celebrating for Adele Josowitz. This next staff member came to Dwight Elementary School as a paraprofessional and then spent her career really testing out all the grade levels. Taught grade 4 there, grade 5, grade 3, grade 2, and kindergarten. The only one I don't see is first grade there. Moved to Osborne Hill, Stratfield, and North Stratfield as an instructional improvement teacher, and right now is the instructional improvement teacher and gifted resource teacher at Stratfield Elementary School. Please join me in celebrating Marie Cass. This next staff member began in the non-public sector of our special ed department as a speech and language pathologist, moved on to Jennings, Fairfield Woods Middle School, Stratfield School, the Alternative High School, Tomlinson Middle School, and recently for the past several years at Fairfield Ludlow High School as a speech pathologist, and that's Betsy Lincoln. This next staff member also joined our special education department. She started at Roger Ludlow High School, moved on to Ward High School, Stratfield Elementary School, Fairfield Woods Middle School, and since 2003 has been a special education teacher, and most recently in the Community Partnership Program at Fairfield Ludlow High School, Mindy Morena, who's not able to be here tonight. This next staff member began at Dwight in grade 3, taught at grade 1, in kindergarten, and then back to grade 1, and just this year was appointed as the new preschool teacher at Dwight Elementary School, Dale Morrissey. He's ringing the doorbell. This next staff member began as a paraprofessional at Riverfield School, and I will say I had the honor of working with her in that location. Came to central office in the personnel office at the time. Roger Ludlow Middle School was the principal's secretary, and since 2003 has been the secretary to the headmaster at Fairfield Ludlow High School. Please join me in celebrating for Gail Syrup. This next staff member began at central office as a secretary, moved on to the personnel office and then the HR office as an executive secretary, who I've had the pleasure of working with as well for the past year. That's Cheryl Slackey. Right. This next staff member has been a member of our special education department for 25 years. She began her career at Jennings Elementary School, moved on to Fairfield High School, and in 2003 moved to Fairfield Ludlow High School as a special education teacher. She's not able to be here tonight, but we're celebrating Jennifer Smith. Next individual began at Fairfield High School as a school lunch worker. In 2003, moved to Roger Ludlow Middle School, where she's been ever since as a school lunch worker. She's not able to be here tonight, but we're celebrating for Gail Zielinski. This next individual has been very consistent for 25 years. She's been at Dwight Elementary School as a paraprofessional. Not able to be here tonight, but that's Darlene Troop. This next individual, also in our school lunch program for all 25 years, began at Andrew Ward High School, was still there when it became Fairfield High School, and has been at Fairfield Ward High School. So again, one location, not able to be here tonight, but we're celebrating for Sue Uralmaz. And that's it. Please, let's join in a round of applause for all of our 25-year recipients.
Now, there's one of two things, that you've all come so that you can stay for the balance of the board meeting. But you might notice that there are more people in the audience than who received pins. And for those of you who did get your 25-year pin, you know that your friends and colleagues have come out to support you. So a round of applause for the support that you've had from your colleagues. We'll take a short break so that those of you who may wish to leave and not stay for the exciting policy discussions can do so, and then we'll reconvene. Yes, and board members can go greet those who you wish to.
I would, yeah.
Stand up and stretch it out. Thank you.
You've sat
all
on those
day.
chairs a lot longer than
Sit all day.
Take 3. This group doesn't look like they're leaving in 2 minutes.
No, we don't want to stay too late. Now we have an executive session after this meeting.
Yep.
You know, I thought that we did, but I looked through the agenda again and I couldn't find it.
No, it's just,
It's not in here.
no, it's just on the back here.
All right. That's right. Usually it's a separate sheet.
Yeah, yeah.
That goes. All right. Okay. That's what.
How are you, young lady?
Good.
You know what I'd give to get 7 years back?
Oh man, not what I'd give 7 years back.
Oh, no, trust me.
I had a meltdown.
Wisdom. All I've got is wisdom.
I definitely don't have any of that.
I don't have anything else. That's what you get, right? Is wisdom? As opposed to the other things?
Maturity.
Maturity. I've gained some humility.
Humility.
Which is hard for people to just, I didn't notice
That's part of maturity.
But draft the agenda thing, and then send to us a bill and says, well, Bill okayed it, and I don't look again.
It always has.
That's it.
There was a mix
It's a big place out there.
And now I've got a teenager in my house.
No harm,
My
no
wife keeps
foul.
telling me that brain erases and we got a whole new organism growing. I don't know who this kid is, but
Who's
it definitely
this?
replaced my son with a pod. You remember like the pod people movies from back in the late 70s, early 80s, where they replaced me with a guy in a pod?
You think he's changed?
Yeah.
Fundamentally or just?
Well, at the moment he had turned 13, he became a son, and the entire universe started revolving around him.
That's been controversial.
My wife asked him to like to do the dishes and stuff. And he's looking at us like, and he's
But
my
he
oldest
acknowledges
son.
it. He still talks to you.
Somewhat, yeah.
That's the key. A lot of times
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I have to look forward to next. What you're saying that I'm going to be.
well, they don't like to think they have parents. You know, they don't acknowledge it. You're not my parent. I don't know who you are.
If I could ask you to come here. So those of you who are still in the room as we're about to reconvene means that you're here for the balance of the meeting. But if not, feel free to leave at any time. Okay, we have officially reconvened at 7:55, and we'll go on with our agenda. There is an item on the agenda, staff recognition, which was a mistake on my part of not explaining that these are one and the same items, the 25-year recognition and the staff recognition. So item C is not on the agenda. Pretend it doesn't exist. So item B, naming of the alternative high school for Walter Fitzgerald, and Dr. Title will lead us off.
Sure, thank you. Back in late June, I received a letter from Peter Holskin, who was a teacher at the alternative high school, subsequently retired, with a request to name the alternative high school in honor of Walter Fitzgerald. So, of course, I immediately went to the policy manual, because we had just had a whole discussion on this, if you remember. And so when I went to the policy manual, it appeared to me that on the surface that this proposal meets the criteria in the policy. One of the items that the policy requires is that if the individual is deceased, that approval is contingent on the agreement of that person's estate. And so I contacted Margaret Mary, and I said, Margaret Mary, look what I have. What are your feelings about it? And she wrote me the letter. You have that letter in your enclosure as well. So you have Peter's letter, Margaret Mary's letter, and the policy. So we don't have this on as an action item. That would be something at the next meeting. But I thought that, I believe Peter at least wants to speak to why he feels that this would be an appropriate naming. Peter.
Thanks. Thanks for inviting us, and I think this kind of folds naturally into honoring the teachers that taught for 25 years, because we have an opportunity to honor a really dedicated educator that served in this community for a long time. But before I get into that, a couple of things I want to do. First, I want to thank Margaret Mary, because I know this hasn't been an easy thing, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to honor Walter's contributions. So thank you. And then in the audience, we have a bunch of students from the co-op. And I want to thank them, because they've been touched by Walter, they've been touched by Martha, they've been touched by Michael, they've been touched by Janice. All the teachers that have worked at that program have made the kind of contribution that's helped these young folks get a handle on their lives and become responsible, contributing citizens. And that's what one of the things the program is all about. And I also want to thank Walter's friends and colleagues that are here tonight. They also do him a great honor by supporting this as well. Walter's a native son. You know, the man grew up in Fairfield. He's got his roots. He had his roots firmly established here. He graduated from Andrew Ward High School. He taught at the middle school, Fairfield Woods, and then he came over to co-op and taught for a long, long time. But in addition to being a skillful, creative educator, he also established a number of principles that are really lasting. Here's a man of integrity. Here's a man that cared. Here's a man that gave his all for the program and the students in it. And it's had a lasting effect on youngsters that have come through that program. And there have been hundreds of youngsters that have come through that program. He also had a really interesting sense of humor. And a terrible voice. You know, I mean, you know, he'd break out in song every once in a while, because I guess one of his hopes was to be a singer, but, you know, he made a better teacher than he did a singer. So this is, and Walter coached basketball in town, and his spirit, his presence is still alive today, because he and Margaret Mary established a scholarship for deserving students that are graduating from the alternative school. So, you know, that spirit, that essence is still alive. Now, John, you asked me, so how does this fold over to the alternative high school? Well, it's really important that a school has an identity. You know, the folks that went to co-op still identify with co-op. It's a family. You know, it's a sense of community. It's a place that you can be proud of and say, hey, look, there's no stigma attached to me. I go to a school that's able to respond to my needs and my interests in a very respectful, creative way. All right? Now, since PAL and co-op came together, it's simply been a generic alternative high school. All right? It's time now to provide an identity and also some of the basic principles and values that Walter was all about. Then in addition to that, the school is also striving for. So we're honoring a person that's been dedicated, committed, made enormous contributions, and we're also providing an identity for an alternative school that, is still in its beginning, evolving stages. And the staff has been very open and supportive of this. Students that I talked to before I retired were also very much into understanding, who Walter was and what he was about. So if we can follow through and do this, students will now be able to identify with a particular school, know who the man is that the school was named for, begin to practice and learn and develop those values of integrity, commitment, effort, responsibility, and it makes a difference in the lives of young people. Having worked co-op for 33 years, it makes a big difference. So, I hope you folks will be open and supportive of this. It's a really interesting opportunity to honor a member of this community and also to give a boost to the alternative high school, which serves a really important purpose in this town, and you folks should be proud that it exists, for those young people that really need it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Holscomb, there may be some questions from board members, so if I might invite you to come back up in case there are. Mr. Convertito.
Yes, there are. And the principal of the alternative high school, are they here as well?
Yes.
Could they come up as well, maybe to answer
Yeah.
one or two questions?
Gail Donowitz?
Gail Donowitz is,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're not that tough, so John's...
No,
John's not-
I just want to, I think, giving the alternative high school an identity, I think is a marvelous idea. I didn't know Walter. That's why I asked you to talk a little bit about him. It seems it's appropriate to name the school after him, but my concern is I don't want it to end there. I want the identity to develop. I want to see a mission statement come forth, a mascot maybe or something. I want it to be not that these kids are warehoused someplace else, that they're an active participant in this educational system and they should be treated as such. So I applaud you for your efforts. I'd like to see it go that much further.
That would be our pleasure.
Okay. Thank
As a
you.
matter of fact, we've been discussing Walter. I also didn't have the pleasure of knowing him, but I've learned about him through Pete and through many of the people at the school. We've been talking about responsibility. We've been talking about respect, and we've been talking about the highest form of integrity, which we believe that Walter demonstrates, and having that name will allow us to not only have words on a wall, but actually live them with a deeper passion. And as a matter of fact, I had emailed to Dr. Title when Pete had made this recommendation that I didn't want it to just be a name, but an educational opportunity for us.
Thank you.
Other questions from board members or comments? Mrs. Iacona.
Thank you. I really think it's a wonderful idea. My question is, what exactly is the name proposal? Is it just Walter Fitzgerald High School? Is it Fairfield Fitzgerald High School? Is it Fitzgerald Alternative High School? Are we,
I don't think we've gotten that far yet.
okay.
So by the time we act on this at the next meeting, that'll get clarified.
Right.
Correct?
We were in the, if this is a concept you seem to be interested in, and we can work with the staff and the students and see what seems to work best to communicate the right message.
Yeah. I would personally be very interested in having you do that, and I think you're honoring a very fine person. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Walter, but I certainly know Margaret Mary, and I think this is a great thing that you're doing. And if you could come up with an official name, I'd love to hear what your exact proposal for that would be.
Other comments or questions from board members? Mrs. Brand, followed by Mrs. Kennelly.
Thank you. Based on your presentation tonight, I think our students are in exceptionally good hands. You're quite frankly an excellent public speaker. No, I'm most genuine. You've done a fine job. I had the pleasure a while back when it opened to visit, and I know you do wonderful work. So I thank you, and I have every hope and have every confidence that it's going to continue. Thank you.
And Mrs. Kennelly.
I second or third the whole notion of the importance of giving the school an identity. I mean, there's no question that students need different paths on that road to success, and that the alternative high school fulfills a vital role. The important things that I heard you say, just of note to you, that in the policy itself, the individual recognized that what we're calling for here is appropriate, which it certainly sounds like his contributions cover that. Just a gym doesn't cover it. That's the feeling I'm getting. That the request should be consistent with their contribution, likewise, and that the contribution they made was significant. And I just want to, reiterate everything that you provided for us as information seems to be fulfilling exactly what we're asking for. So that's very exciting to hear, to have someone who's so worthy of this.
Any other comments from board members at this time? Mr. Convertito.
Just one, and I don't know if other board members want to weigh in on this. I would prefer not to have the term alternative in there. If we're going to give it an identity as a high school, let's give it an identity as a high school and include everybody in the fold. I don't know how other board members feel, but if they want to voice their opinion on that, I prefer not to have co-op or alternative in there.
Mr. Fatterbean.
I guess one view in that light is I would certainly look at the existing names of the high school and see that it fits within the existing names, such as Fairfield, Ludlow, Fairfield Ward, and then the third one.
For you who, I don't know how long you've been with the district, but the community was engaged in the process of naming the two high schools once we reopened the two high schools. I know it's kind of an understatement.
Yeah, just a small one.
And so I'll say this, Margaret Mary took excellent care of our two children, and I have no doubt that Walter took excellent care of the children under his care, and so it is an honor that is well-deserved. And working out the details is all that's needed between now and the next meeting. We will take action, and when we take action as a voting item, then members of the public will be able to speak at our next meeting. For those of you who may wish to add your accolades to the ones that have already been presented. And so with no further comments from board members, we'll move on. Thank you very much for your presentation. Next item we have on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 27th, 2013. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Brand, seconded by Mrs. Iacona. Any conversation or comments on the minutes? If not, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye. It's 7-0 and 1, correct? You're abstaining? Yes. Let the minutes record that Mr. Carey is abstaining, and the rest have approved it. Are there any board, committee, or liaison reports at this time? I know that there's a policy committee that will come up later on, but anything from a liaison? Mrs. Brand.
I was at the Board of Health last night, and thank you, Mrs. Kennelly, for pointing out that my mic wasn't working. I think I take it this one is? Okay. The Board of Health had two issues that were relevant that I just want to make sure folks are aware of. One, there is another policy coming through. It had to go through the Board of Health. It has to do with epinephrine administration. And it is one of those other medication ones. I don't think it will have any hitches, but I do want to give you a heads up on that. The other thing is that the school nurses are also using Infinite Campus. And what they are finding, they're loading a tremendous amount of data, but again, the purpose of this was for communication. So now, for instance, they're able to take a student's health issues and actually send that list to the teacher. So there isn't a whole lot of paper, but the teacher has access to it, which has been extremely helpful. Relative to the rest, there's a SES meeting that is this Thursday, and I'll keep the board up to date. We were supposed to have a presentation on the preschool from the state, and unfortunately that was canceled. I'm hoping that will happen, but that's it for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other, Mrs. Gerber?
The Fairfield Ludlow Building Committee had their first meeting the day before school started, and they chose a chair, vice chair, and secretary, and they have set up their next meeting for tomorrow. It will be a tour of Fairfield Ludlow High School, and then they will have a meeting to set the remainder of meetings for this year, and just kind of do a little bit of housekeeping, and that's about all that's going on with that right now.
Compliments are due to Dr. Title for encouraging Mr. Tetro to work hard over the summer, who recruited a good committee, and then also to the RTM for scheduling a special August meeting so that we could keep this project on track. So we had a lot of cooperation, if you will, from town boards to move this along. Anything else on liaison committee reports? Mrs. Iacona.
I just wanted to let board members and really the public know that the Riverfield Building Committee is meeting a week from tonight, Tuesday, and the meeting is open to neighbors to get input on all the different staging and construction issues that will take place at the school. So if you live in the surrounding neighborhood, you're welcome to attend this meeting to give your input.
Anything else? Hearing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Title.
Okay, thank you. I have a few items to go over. I did put at your places, and there should be copies in the back of the most recent, what we call the first week count of enrollment, which is in pink, and a copy of the major maintenance and capital projects that were completed over the summer. A few other points I just want to talk to verbally. There's no other way to talk to him other than verbally. Sorry, Jennifer. On the enrollment, one of the things that we look at is where do we stand with kindergarten? That's the most variable figure in all of our enrollment projection work. It's the thing that obviously is the most unknown because those children are not in the school system. And I'm actually happy to report that our projected enrollment at kindergarten this year from our consultant was 724 students. And we actually have, as of this moment, 715, which is very close. So that worked out very well. Again, on all the numbers on this sheet are subject to change. There's always movement between now and October 1st, and you'll get an October 1st, and that's the official one. So understand this is a bit fluid, but kindergarten tends to be, what it is. And so that we basically were then in a position with the rest of the enrollment to staff the schools almost exactly with the FTE count we budgeted. It's within 0.2 of an FTE out of 850 in that neighborhood. We did have a net increase of needing one additional teacher at the elementary level, but there were some decreases, fractions up and down elsewhere, and the net of the whole thing is that we're pretty much right on the number. It still can move, kids move in, kids move out, and so forth, but it really worked out and pretty close to as we expected in terms of our FTE counts. As you can see at the middle school, after the full redistricting took effect this year, as we expected, Fairfield Woods is now our largest middle school with 930 students, followed by Ludlow and then Tomlinson. And those are, and those schools are staffed appropriately. If you remember, we had to move quite a few staff members from Tomlinson, mostly from Tomlinson to Woods, and that's all occurred. Some numbers that are also still in flux. The early childhood numbers are still in flux at this time of year. ECC tends not to fill up right away. As kids turn 3, they come in, so that number will go up, and there's still a few slots open in the pre-K between Dwight and Burr, but those will pick up as well. So we expect the totals probably to go higher. At the high school level, we're fairly close to the overall number of kids, about 3,000. But the mix has changed a bit. Ward is a little bit bigger than we thought, and Ludlow's a little smaller than we thought. The total number is about in the ballpark. We'll get a better handle on how that happened. We'll get that information out. But the net effect of the whole thing is when you compare this year's first week with where we were last year, it's pretty close to a wash. And once the pre-K picks up, we'll probably go past it. So it's pretty much on the money here, and we have a lot of kids in the school system, and we continue to do so. And the kindergarten is holding up its end of the bargain. It just doesn't seem to be any decline in sight. We are getting, as you remember, one of our initiatives is to do an updated long-range enrollment forecast, to have the company that did this originally look at how they did and tweak the model and come back. And so we'll see where that all lands. So that's where we are on enrollment. I will say that this year we centralized the registration process. We lifted the burden of registration from the schools and did it all in the central office. Found that was helpful because it made the schools more productive, and it was something the central office could do to help, but also allowed us to standardize and really have a good handle on checking all the documents, making sure of residency. We had our residency officers on hand as people came in. If there were questions, we could go right to them. People in the summer where the elementary schools may not be staffed with someone to take them, they were able to get in over the summer. And we're finding that this enrollment really could be done on more on a rolling basis. So we're looking at reorganizing the central office in such a way that there'd be somebody who would be the registrar and who would be consistent, and people could come in at any time, and we could even perhaps start our kindergarten enrollment even earlier than we have in the past, so we can start to get earlier numbers. So that's something we did that I think was value added, although there were obviously glitches with anything like that. The teacher administrator evaluation plan is obviously the big thing that we're rolling out this year. One of the reasons that we didn't have the live convocation was that we had so much training to do in order to get this thing off the ground that we needed 5 additional hours of training for the teachers on the components of the evaluation plan just to launch it. Now there's even more coming through the fall. There's additional training. But that was in addition to the regular professional development, and that's why we had the 25-year employees here. That's why my convocation speech is somewhere on YouTube, on the district website. You can it's like speed reading. It's 200 words a minute for 8 minutes or something. And so that's really off to the races. The administrators had 3 full days of training over the summer. All of our administrator training was based on this, and we're just going to be continuing this throughout the year. So we're off to the races on it, and it's a big project this year. On the technology front, we've made some enhancements over the summer that you might be aware of. Of course, Infinite Campus, as it's rolling out, the K-12 alert system has been replaced through the message system at Infinite Campus. We delivered the class list on Infinite Campus, which really encouraged everyone to sign up. We upgraded our VPN so students and staff can access their files that are stored on the district servers when they're at home or they're out of the district. It's the Barracuda VPN that the technology staff was able to put in. Our email server, one of the issues we had last year in the hurricane was the central office went down without power for about 9 days, our email went down, and we did not have any kind of backup system. And remember, the only way I could communicate out was through a K-12 text message, or the only way I could communicate with you all was, I think, like texting Pam, and Pam was sending things out. So we've got some redundancy on our email server. If we have a power outage or a catastrophic failure here, we've upgraded it and provided some redundant service there to keep the system's email running if the central office loses power. The wireless access project was completed, if you might remember that from last year. So all of the K-8 schools now have wireless installed. They're added to the buildings, and so any district laptop or device equipped with the ability to access the network wirelessly, and there's guest networks and so forth. So that's particularly helpful at some of our schools where if somebody is there, an adult, for example, some of the 3G is hardly available. So this will really help. If you've ever been at Roger Ludlow Middle School and tried to get service, if you're there for an hour, your entire battery is gone in your phone because it's constantly searching for service. So a lot of this technology upgrade, including that, is we have to continuously update this technology so we can be ready for the Smarter Balance assessments, which would be given perhaps as early as this spring, but certainly a year from now, and they'll be online. And so it's really important to keep the technology updated. So that's just a few. We did upgrade and replace some of the Ward High School servers, and the Ludlow server, which has been very problematic. That is going to be replaced. That's been ordered, but it hasn't been installed yet. You might remember that project was lurking around out there. We decided we had to replace it. It was failing, but it hasn't been installed yet. But it's happening soon, as soon as it comes in. Security, I don't want people to think that we haven't continued our efforts on security, and I can't speak to everything that we've done over the summer with that. I will say a few things. One is we've continued our closer working relationship with the police department. The chief and I, if you remember, there was a whole plan to have a significant increased presence of police within the schools, and the town didn't fully fund that, but they did fund enough to assign a sergeant full-time as a liaison and to coordinate all the services. And they're actually going to be housed here in central office, overseeing the 4 officers that are out there, responding to any issues at central office, responding to issues right away from the schools. If the schools don't have an officer there, then there's a sergeant coordinating all of that. Much more communication with the police department about issues and greater visibility of the police are all part of the mix here. We are in the process of installing it. It's in all of the schools, our key card access, which we're planning to roll out eventually to the elementary and middle schools, which will allow staff members access without having to hit the buzzer and interrupt the secretaries. And that can be controlled. There's going to be an ID card that functions as your security, and if it gets lost, it can be turned off and monitored. And so that's all in progress right now, but that was something the police department really felt would be very beneficial. We have, on the transportation front, I will describe it as the usual issues. We are getting the kids to school. Some of the buses are still late. John Fickey is working his way through, as he does every year. But just to give you an idea of the volume he has to work through with the routes and working around the construction, if you've noticed, the amount of road work, it really is disruptive to the buses. Between bridge closures, road work, sidewalks, closed lanes, it really throws a monkey wrench in the bus system. So we're working around that. But we've got 150 bus stop requests from parents who want the stop changed, mostly saying that this current stop is unsafe. And so this will take some time to work through, but that's the volume that we have to deal with. So we're as responsive as we can, but some of them will end up on Paul's desk, but most of the time we can work it out, but it just takes time for John to work through that.
Excuse me for a
Yeah.
moment. Some of you might have noticed the big smiles that have come across the board members' faces. We have a dedicated board member, Mr. Federbean, who has been loyal in dealing with this and being the board representative on these issues, and we are very happy that he has been loyal to that task.
Since nobody else wants it, for obvious reasons. So we are still, I don't want to tell you that everything is smooth sailing on the transportation front, but it never is, and it seems to be about the normal level of disruption. One of the oddities, we got a lot of new buses with this new bus contract, and some of them are taller than the previous buses, which means they don't fit into the bridges. So we've had to reroute buses around. The bridges that go to the post road, those are the railroad bridges, right? A completely unexpected notion, and there's like very little choice about that. Like you can't say, I want a shorter bus. So that just gives you an example of the fun in the transportation department. That falls into the jobs nobody really wants department, and they're housed at the dump. If you've ever visited down there, it's quite the sight. And also, I mentioned all the major maintenance and capital projects. You have a list in front of you. Obviously, summer is a very busy time in that department, and some things were on the list, and a lot of stuff was done. You all agonize over the budget and the amount we put into maintenance, and I'll just make a point on the last topic, which is the Ludlow High School emergency generator. That was a cooperative project with the town. We had put some money in to upgrade the generator, but the town had requested, a significantly enhanced generator system there, because what we learned during the storm was that the shelter at Ludlow, the generator that was there just wasn't capable of providing power to a large enough swath of the building. And so we put in some money to upgrade that, but the town's emergency management team really wanted to beef that up. So they put a bunch of money in, and we sort of combined forces, and that project is complete. So God forbid we have another major power outage where we have to house large numbers of children and adults. We're in much better shape at Ludlow to do that. So that's my report.
Okay, questions or from the board members on, here, I'll start on this side first, Mr. Yeah, I'll go from here to there. Mr. Convertito.
Yeah, on the major maintenance capital projects spreadsheet, can we just have that updated next time to show what was budgeted for and what's not yet completed?
Sure.
Just so we have the other side of the equation.
Yeah, there's still some projects ongoing. Yep. Sure.
Mrs. Iacono?
I just had two questions related to enrollment. For the preschool, the pre-K, is that full, or do we still have openings there?
No, there's still some slots open there at Burr and Dwight. I think we capped that at 36 each, right, Anna? So there's still some.
I just filled Burr today. We have a couple slots open.
Okay. So this is even outdated from the before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
we were pretty close, so I'm not sure why the Dwight number is so low. Since I was just up there last week and there were more kids, so the pre-K is always tricky. So that's been pretty popular. I mean,
No, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Mind you that some kids can't start until their third birthday. So
Right.
they're on the roster, but
They're not actually there. Okay, so Anna's saying, since she has a microphone, is that we have kids signed up to go, but they can't go till they turn 3. They might turn 3 in November, so we have a slot for them, but they're not physically there right now, which is probably why they're not on the list.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then my other question is that we're finished with opt-in at McKinley, correct? No?
We are finished with,
Or opt-out?
Opt-out
Opt-out.
of McKinley.
Okay.
Right.
But you can still opt-in?
correct.
All right. Do we know how many, did we have people choose to opt-in?
Yeah.
I received a phone call with one request this year.
Right, minimal.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bland?
Yeah, actually, that leads into one of my questions, because I was wondering if we had a sense with the enrollment, and particularly with the preschools, where we are with our racial imbalance plan. Also, I know that and you can, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to answer these tonight, because I don't think you have those numbers yet. The other thing was, we did do full-day kindergarten with the expectations that we would have also cost savings. So I was wondering if, at some point we could get an update on that to find out how much it did in fact save. The other thing, I heard it, that we're doing the key card access, and I think it's a very smart thing to do with elementary and middle school, which leads me to the obvious question: when do we anticipate doing the high schools? Because quite frankly, those campuses are large, the doors are open, kids are all over the place, and obviously it's a security problem no matter how you look at it.
Right, and it's on a drawing board. We kind of had to prioritize based on the funds available. And the other thing about the high schools is, they are committed to having somebody physically at the door at all times, covering, so that people that come in and out, are seen by, an adult. So at this point, those are much larger and extensive projects, as you said. There's a lot more doors. Ultimately, we'd like to do that because one of the things it allows you to do is, if a teacher wants to go out, say, a nearby door, say, go to their car, they forgot something, if they can swipe right back in, then, they're less likely to do something like, oh, let's just prop this open for 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 2 minutes. So we want to do it, but at this point, it's still on the drawing board. It's taking us quite a bit of time just to get the other ones up and running. And the buses, I just say, we'll look up the number, but all the buses that had been used for the midday runs were eliminated. So the number of buses that we were running last year obviously are not running, and so the savings should be right about in line with what we said they would be. It was not like, other than the first 5 days or so where we still run the half day to get everybody acclimated, all of the savings on the transportation side should be realized from going to the full day option.
And the other thing I also was curious about is what we have with the Osborne Hill, because I know there was some recent testing and that the gym was still elevated. That may not be, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to be considering not too far down the road, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's the library is the issue.
I thought they said the gym actually had elevated PCB levels.
Well, the gym has always had elevated PCB levels,
right.
But the most recent testing, and that we're doing some follow-up on right now, is in the library. And those costs, we had actually, in the budget that we did last year, when we brought the budget to the town bodies for approval of the $825,000 for Osborne Hill, we had a contingency in there for follow-up work in the library, since it abuts the gym. And so we can tap into that money without having to hit the operating budget for it this year. So, we're going to have to do continuous testing at Osborne Hill until the project is done, which we expect to be, we're hoping to be this summer. And at that point, the entire problem will be resolved. So.
And I guess my last thing, and thank you, is really about Infinite Campus, because I got some calls and they said that freshmen and actually some of the custodians will still having some difficulty. Not that I don't anticipate some of it, but I know, particularly when you're a freshman, your access is takes on a whole new meaning than it would if you were a senior.
Yeah, Infinite Campus has growing pains, and we work with individuals to get them in. And I think once people get in and get comfortable with it, they really see the benefits of it. Parents having an app with an icon on their phone, being able to know almost everything instantaneously is kind of
Really
interesting.
cool.
Right? So I think we're growing into it. There are growing pains with it, but we're optimistic that it's really going to be value added. It is already.
Anything else, Mrs. Gerber?
Just to piggyback on that with the Infinite Campus, do we know when the school websites that are tied into Infinite Campus will have the information that they had under Edline?
They're all being worked on right now. We have a webmaster, and the framework for all the school pages has been created, and now anybody who wants to create or maintain the web page can do it. So now it's just a matter of the individual schools rolling over the information and getting it up there. So that's in continuous work as we speak. I'm not sure that, different schools may be at different times,
Okay.
but it's on the radar screen.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for the superintendent on the topics that he has reported on? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Under new business, the policy committee has a policy that they're moving forward. In Jennifer's absent, who has an errand she has to run related to her family and children, and hopes to be back, Mr. Fatterbean will make the report.
Okay, at our last policy committee meeting, we discussed the revisions to the policy on curriculum 6200. A motion was made at that committee to amend that policy to read, I'll only read the amended portion, it would appear at the bottom of the policy. The Board of Education adopts the Administrative Regulation 6200 AR dated June 26, 2013. The Administration Regulation 6200 AR dated June 26, 2013 shall not be revised without prior approval of the Board of Education. And Administrative Regulation 6200 AR generally relates to the how pilots are going to be performed within the school district. And the rationale or the reason primarily for that amendment was in essence to put us in compliance with a settlement agreement that was entered into with various complainants during a proceeding in front of the State Board of Education.
The board has already approved the settlement agreement to which the administrative regulations were attached. We had made a commitment to fold this in as a policy statement in addition to administrative regulations, and Mr. Fatterbean came up with a convenient way to accomplish that without having to rewrite everything. And so that is what is in front of you. We will be sending out a copy of the administrative regulations to you attached to this when it comes up for an action item, but it is a duplicate of what you've already approved by approving the settlement agreement. Questions for Mr. Fatterbean or Mr. Convertito? Or do you have other comments you want to
I
make?
just comment that those administrative regulations were included in the June 25th packet.
Yeah.
So we did have them before us at
Yeah.
one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other comments or questions from board members on the policy committee? That will be second reading and for action at the next regular meeting of the Board of Education, and members of the public will be able to make comment on it at that time. Okay, probably not a record, but nonetheless pretty close to one. We are at public comment and petitions. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation or a comment to the Board of Education at this time? Please state your name and address.
Suzanne Miska, 123 Rygate Road. First on my list is Infinite Campus. Having a freshman at one of the high schools who cannot gain access to a system when he had access to it 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. When we are taking tests, we are doing homework assignments, we need to get these kids access. It's nice to have an app, but you need to be able to have an app that gets you the information that you need. So I cannot urge it enough. Maybe it's because Fairfield Ludlow High School is getting a server. I have no idea. But the fact that these kids, an error message comes up, they can't gain access. It's very nice that I as a parent have access, but the student to me is more important. Second, the strategic plan. I'm asking the Board of Ed to have the school district respond to them with a review of what was a winner and what was a loser on the strategic plan that has been in place for the last couple of years. I am also going to make a recommendation as someone who sat on the Student Policy Committee that you instill a new strategic plan. If we're going to ask our students to follow a policy and adhere to regulations, it would be nice to have a strategic plan that sets exactly the goals and objectives of the school district as accorded between the school district and the Board of Ed. And my final thing is on school safety. As someone who is a new parent at the high school, if there is someone who is supposed to be greeting me at the door, they seem to have failed the first test. I walked into the school with students milling in the lobby. Nobody was there. The doors were open, and I walked to the office. While I appreciate I do not look scary, although some people would differ on that, I am concerned as a parent on the lack of safety and security at the high school level. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Tina DeJournette, 35 Quaker Lane, parent and teacher. Two things about Infinite Campus, and just because I'm a teacher, I'm going to answer this. Even when we had Edline, the freshmen had to wait 2 to 3 weeks to get set up because the librarians do it, and they start the first 2 weeks by distributing books to all the students. So just to let you know, it's not new with Infinite Campus. There is an issue in Infinite Campus, though, and I have contacted the IT department, and that is, while the phone app is wonderful for the kids who have phones, they don't receive the messages that are sent. So all the messages that the district sends out that says school's opening and you'll get your schedules on the first day of school, or the report cards are on Infinite Campus. All these messages only go if you sign on to a computer and read it there. I'm sorry to tell you this, but students don't do that. I have begged, I have threatened, I have bribed my kids into getting them to sign up for email, because unlike Edline, it wasn't an automatic process. They have to go on, they have to pick, not even sure what it's called, they have to go to a special spot, I forget what it's called, and then they have to choose how they want to get emergency, attendance, behavior, teachers, and for teachers, the only way that they can do it is through email. And they have to put the email in, and they have to check this box. It's not in where they put in their personal information. It's a whole new screen. So if there's anyone who has any idea on how to get the kids and the parents to sign up for the email, because all they use is the phone, because they just want to know what their grade is, and that's on the phone, that would be awesome. Again, I have bribed and threatened, and I've got about, I'd say 75% of my kids at this point now have signed up for the email. And also, I am the person who sits at the front door, period 7, every day, and we are not at the door, we're at the door of the office. So just to let you know, if anybody asks, we don't stand at the front door, we sit at the door of the office, and that's my duty, so I know that's where I am. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So if there's anybody in the audience that can help her figure out how to get her teenage child to... No, all students. No, I know. Any other comments from the public? Seeing nobody up to the microphone, we are now at the part of the meeting where we are convening into executive session. Oh, open board comment? Open board comment. I even have something written down for this. Mrs. Brand.
Yeah, just one thing that I think needs to be...
Open board comment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. On an upcoming agenda, because I think we missed it, but we have, I think, a transfer of funds relative to food service that took place, and I think that we need to have it. I know we need to have it per statute, but I think we need to cover it, because I know if we don't, Board of Finance is certainly going to have to do it. So I know that we have to do it, we always have to do it. But my point is now Board of Finance is going to be doing it as well. So I think all the more reason that we're up to date on that and making sure that we follow through, because if I'm not mistaken, we did have a transfer of funds to cover some expenses in food service. Okay.
Any other comments from board members on open board comment? Mr. Fattabine.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, since I had commented on it before at some prior board meetings, and I noticed a couple meetings ago that as I inquired, I now noticed that one of our former superintendents is now in back of me in image. Dr. Clark has been placed on the wall adjacent the other distinguished superintendents we've had in the past, and I just am happy to see the record is complete, and she is there now.
Thank you. Yes. That's checked off. Okay. Mrs. Iacona.
I just, Dr. Title, I had heard that the administration did decide to move forward with numbering parking spots at the high school. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I know it's an ongoing process, and when you think enough time has passed, if you could just let us know how you think that worked out. Thank you.
At your table, as promised, I took the conversation that we had to finalize the review of the budget development process and put them in front of you, added the item number 13 regarding Public Act 1360 that is new. You'll see that there's a comment there that we have already reached out to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to see how they want to handle that, so that we are being proactive. Where we left this at the last time and where I'm leaving it here is that please review this, read this, and this completes our work unless board members have other comments they want to make and the board wants to entertain them. So that completes that item. No more open board comments, so we will now convene into executive session, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Education convene to executive session to discuss superintendent evaluation. Mr. Kerry, seconded by Mrs. Iacona. All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Say aye. It is unanimous. And so this, we'll not end up with an action item tonight, so we will convene into the superintendent's conference room so that the TV people won't have to sit here for whatever number of time, only to take down the equipment later.